All right, let's welcome our audience. Welcome to the Ready, Set, Gemini podcast. I am your host, Dan Mora. Directly across from me.
Hey, everybody. It's Frank Smithson here.
Hey, Frank. How goes it?
Goes pretty good.
Pretty good, huh?
Yeah. Just working in the backyard a lot this weekend, too. Building out my barbecue island. I just started putting the hardy backer, like a cement board that goes on, and then you can apply your veneer, which I'm going to do a stone veneer. So it's been fun. That stuff's toxic, though. It's kind of scary to cut. It's got like a silica, and if you breathe that stuff in, it's like carcinogen. So
Ooh.
I was wearing a mask, and it was pretty hot out there, getting some sun, but making some good progress. Got to have it all done by October. I can't remember the exact date, but we're doing a Gemini hosted party at Frank's house. It's going to be interesting.
Everyone's invited.
Everyone, the whole entire company is invited.
Everybody listening to this podcast.
No plus ones. No, not everybody listening to this podcast. Sorry, attorneys out there, you're not invited. It'll be enough with just the Gemini family. We got over, how many employees do we have now?
250-ish.
250 employees. Yeah, so hopefully we get 100 participants, and that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're all welcome. No plus ones. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any words of wisdom? I'll throw you on the spot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and actually I have this topic that I'm interested in, and it is it's more of a Socratic question to you. You know, do you consider trust a commodity? And do you think that trust is becoming more of a commodity in today's age? Consider fake news. Consider
so unfortunate
AI.
to even think about that. Dang it. This is words of wisdom because you're bringing me down a little bit right now.
Well, here's the silver lining. If trust is a commodity, and in today's day and age with fake news and AI, where do you go then for your source of truth?
Sure.
Usually, well,
you're asking me specifically.
I'm asking you specifically, but my thought is that we go back to the core of where we trust things and where we trust people. Things that can be trusted and people that can be trusted become more of a commodity, become more important in that type of environment.
Yeah, but how do you ever really know? You know, but sure, I like to do a lot of research. I have friends that send me memes and they take it as a source of truth, or even articles. And you know, it's a news source that I haven't seen before. First thing I do is Google it. Now, do you know for a fact that what you're getting from Google is truth?
Yeah.
But I feel like as long as you cross your I's, dot your T's, that's a little backwards. Yeah, dot your I's, cross your T's. Then you're going to be better off than just taking it at face value.
There's times where we have to rely on a truth.
Sure.
That is pretty important. Let's just say it's a voting issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And that becomes more consequential, how you seek truth. You know, I just think it's I kind of think of it as a good thing. I don't want to bring you down, man. Like I think that actually this is a good thing for us. Having more fakeness, having more spoofness out in the world, I think draws us closer to what we already have for many, many years and institutionally have relied on for trust.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like we're getting dumbed down, where the population as a whole is having more and more difficulty being able to discern what is real and what's wrong. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, you know, those that want to seek truth and understand will put in the energy to, you know, figure that out for the long run, kind of remove this whole thing that we're going through with all this fakeness. Mm. I'm not super optimistic on this one, and I'm glad that you are. Somebody needs to be.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple news headlines. Number one, this was from today. A family member is arraigned for an alleged $2.5 million fraud scheme. So this is an employer in Merced that was underreporting their wages obviously significantly, and is now in big trouble.
Well, good riddance. That's just so disheartening as well.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
why are you going to, I mean, was there, I mean,
well,
I
there's
guess
financial incentive.
They must be proving malicious intent.
It doesn't matter. They frauded insurance. The malicious intent is that they put the money in their pocket instead of paying workers' compensation insurance.
Wow.
And that's insurance fraud.
Yeah.
You know, you can't unknowingly, you know, it's ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Is how this
for
operates.
For sure.
Oh.
I just hate people taking advantage of people. It's always not something I'm into.
Devil's advocate, these people are taking advantage of state compensation insurance fund. So.
Sure. I mean, still, which then trigger state compensation insurance fund to do actions to prevent these things, which could impede on injured workers, right? Mm-hmm. So it all comes back around.
Yeah. Fight the system differently.
Yeah.
That's I think the word of wisdom.
So I got another headline here. WCAB is talking about the NFL again. So if you haven't worked in California for the past year, played any games in California, then you have no right to workers' compensation. That's being contested because of a phone call. Essentially, if an athlete who lives in California but doesn't play in California or is on a California team makes a phone call in and says, hey, I'm interested in, you know, maybe getting a job, that in itself is kind of enough to justify that you can file workers' compensation for NFL. It's being looked at right now. There was just a case. I forgot the name of the case.
Is it this one? Uribari?
Yep, okay. That one. And it's Moore versus Cleveland Browns. And so they are anticipating an appeal, but we'll see where that goes. It'd be interesting for copy services. For those of you listening out here, we did used to work with a couple law firms that did NFL, and it's interesting. You get an NFL guy, breaks his thumb, he's going to go see 16 doctors. He could get an MRI on his brain to make sure there's no brain clots. Compared to an ag worker who breaks his thumb, it's like, you know, maybe you have an emergency visit and a Band-Aid and
splint it,
and then you got to do IMR for, you know, ibuprofen forever.
Gosh.
So it's very different. In fact, we did analysis. I think it was like 2.2 locations or medical records requests on average per case.
Per injured worker.
And in NFL, it was like closer to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely a little different. And then.
So our main article, we're focusing on our main topic.
That one is punishment or prevention. California debates the fentanyl crisis, and this is through the AP. And that was just published on April 27th. So I guess there's a little bit of gridlock is what's going on because of the direction that we need to take. But there are some pretty significant things happening with fentanyl in California. I thought this was pretty interesting stats. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, so fentanyl overdoses accounted for 1 in 5 deaths among people 15 to 24. This is in California. I never thought that California had like a big fentanyl thing till reading this. I thought it was here, but I thought it was pretty minimal. I thought it was like more of like a, you know, Midwest, East Coast type of thing. But it sounds like 1 in 5 people that are dying, 15 to 24, and it's killing roughly 110 people every week in this state.
Wow.
So definitely not too cool.
Wow.
Just recently, I think this was last week, California enacted the National Guard for San Francisco. And I remember watching a video. They were basically not even sure what they were going to do with them yet. They're here. How are they going to help? It was still like...
So they sent in the National Guard to
help with the fentanyl crisis in San Francisco, but they didn't know exactly how they were going to use them.
Like troops with guns?
I don't know. Are they walking around with some ARs? That'd be interesting.
I mean, maybe, you know, plainclothes doctors or something, National Guard doctors. That's interesting.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Fentanyl in general is obviously a topic that's national, but it also has some workplace safety precautions. So workers in law enforcement, emergency medical services, and healthcare are at risk of exposure to fentanyl while on the job. The drug's so potent, even small exposure, can get you. You got some drug dealer that's, I don't know what they do, cook up stuff or whatever, and they got a bunch of it on their body that caused them the overdose, and then you're the medical facility that goes in, just a little EMT. Tiny speck of it, don't wipe your nose or your eyes.
Gosh.
So pretty interesting. I'm curious if there's any specialties around those types of workers' comp law where you're on the job.
Type of exposure.
Poison type of thing.
It's got to be.
Yeah. And now a poison that is, it's such a little amount of it, you might not even see it, and it could get you.
Scary.
Also, this whole fentanyl thing, we think of workers' compensation.
Yeah.
You get injured on the job and you need to go out and you need to get some form of opiates to create pain. Now, all of a sudden, you're like in this system. And then what happens when you come out of the work comp system? Maybe no future medicals, and they want to wean you off that stuff, but you got a little bit of addiction. That's when you go to the streets. What I'm hearing is they're basically pressing fake pills that look like regular ones, and then they put the fentanyl in it. You take that, and then here's your trip to the ER or to the grave, one of the two.
Gosh, man, it's scary.
Yep. So definitely some interesting stuff going on there. So some of the paths that people are looking at is punishment, or do you do forms of support, right? And that's where this debate is getting kind of gridlocked. You got the right, Republicans are kind of pushing for more tough sentencing. And then you have the moderate lefts that are kind of for more tough sentencing. But then you also have the, more liberal lefts that are like, no, we can't do punishment. All that's going to do is suppress, minority groups, put them in prison. It's going to be similar to the crack epidemic is what they're worried about, rinse, lather, repeat. So they're looking for more ways to, prevent that. Maybe there's a combination of both that we need. Who knows? But that's where we kind of left off.
Yeah, this article, this AP article, is talking about 30 bills that have been introduced to the California legislature to address the issue. And there's like you're talking about, a philosophical debate and the best way to address it, whether that is like you said, punishment, or what do they call it? Treatment? How do you call it? Prevention?
Prevention, yeah. Support, something of that nature. And right now, in California, the left is ruling everything, right? But the moderates and then the further left is where that issue's coming up. So we're just getting kind of stagnation there.
That sucks.
Yeah. I got an interesting story, kind of maybe make this a little bit more felt, a little empathy. And this isn't California, this is Idaho, but I got a buddy that lives out there, and his next door neighbor, there's a dad, a 12-year-old kid, and an 18-year-old daughter, and the 12-year-old walks in and sees his dad hunched over in the corner. He's dead from fentanyl poisoning. And so the mom is kind of out of the picture. And my buddy, who's the next door neighbor, his daughter was friends with the kid. And so they needed kind of a place to stay. The house, I guess, was condemned for 48 hours. They had to, do forensics, whatever. So that kid came over and was spending the night for a couple nights. And they contacted the mom. The mom wanted to have nothing to do with the kid at all. So horrible, right? And they did end up releasing custody to the 18-year-old daughter. But man, this is someone brand new, probably to the world, probably doesn't have a job, was relying on the dad, and it's got to figure all this type of stuff out. So it hits home when this type of stuff happens, and it's happening to 110 people a week here in California.
Gosh, man. Yeah, it seems like a pretty hot issue for legislature right now, with 30 different bills and obviously people being impacted. on a daily basis. And that's a lot. That's unfortunate. I wonder kind of what ultimately is going to come from this. Maybe it highlights we've talked about this before, just kind of the mental health. I think it's a crisis. I think drugs are the abuse of drugs are
the mental health piece. That's the one side of the coin, right? Like, hey, help these people. The other side is punish these people.
How do you punish the users?
Even the sellers. Like, go ahead and punish them. What's going to happen? You're just going to have somebody that's going to come right behind them that's already marginalized and is selling drugs because they can't cope with any other means of the world. Like, it's a big issue to tackle.
Yeah.
You know?
Now you're depressing me.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
So I did a little chat GTP. When it says overdose deaths, I was kind of asking it about workers' comp as well. It says fentanyl is responsible for a growing number of overdose deaths in California, including among workers who use the drug recreationally. This can lead to lost productivity and increased healthcare costs for employers, as well as the emotional toll of losing a colleague. Employers may need to consider implementing drug testing policies and providing education on the dangers of fentanyl use. I thought that was pretty cool.
It's a good tip.
You know, take it on your own right to, if you got a lot of employees, communicate. That helps a lot, right? After reading this article, I'm like, I want to go back to my daughters and say, hey, this is some crazy stuff out here. Be careful of it.
Yeah. I know in our school they do fentanyl awareness.
Oh, that's cool.
Several times a year.
Yeah, I got to check on that. I'll ask my wife. That would be good.
Yeah, important.
Any final thoughts?
Take care of the tip, think a little bit beyond your own sphere and think about maybe how you can participate in a positive way.
Yeah.
In this, I think that the very, very simple example, just the voting turnout is usually low, in general, like from a percentage of the population, as a really baseline thing that I can feel like I can advocate for.
Yeah.
Go vote,
For sure.
Sounds silly, and
I've been maybe voting since I've been 18.
But I think it's your price you pay for being an American is to literally go out there and spend the time that's required to research the issues and go vote.
Yeah, research the issues. I think that's a big piece.
Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah. So subscribe, follow.
All of the above.
Do this stuff.